A beat's gonna kick in here eventually, but there you go. What's up? We're back.
Hey,
It's the X-Files. This is the X-Files theme remixed by Uberk. That's the YouTube channel, Uberk. Doesn't really say anything more than that, but you can definitely download it. We did a cool little remix of the X-Files theme, which I always like to hear. It's been a while since I had some opening music for the show. Hello, my X-Phillies. How are you? Thank you for those that watched the episode on the movie, because we had been away for a little while, and we came back, and we actually got a nice little view count on that. So that's very nice. That's really cool. Don't forget to like and subscribe, because now we have crossed the Rubicon. We are to the second half of what a lot of people call the X-Files. The post-movie X-Files, which is a bit different than the pre-movie X-Files. And we can
I started season 8 yesterday, actually.
Oh shit! You moving right along.
Yeah.
I think I'm on episode 7 or 8 of season 7. After those, well, I don't want to talk too much about season 7, but I wasn't very happy with that mythology arc. But the standalones are okay. They're not like amazing, but you get through them. Yeah, I can't wait to get to season 8 though, because I remember when I did my rewatch some years back, I was surprised by how good it was, because I was one of those millions who said, "No, David Duchovny, no X-Files," and I stopped watching when he left, and I kind of kicked myself a little bit, because it's actually pretty good from memory. I don't know. I want to rewatch it to make sure I wasn't drunk. Now, Pete, season 6. What are some tonal shifts for you? Some things that are just clear off the bat, like this is a different season.
Well, I think they kind of tried to ride with the bigger, everything is bigger aspect that the movie brought to it. They really tried to capitalize on the success of the movie, but at the same time, the movie was like, that was really about as far as you could take it, and you could tell that they didn't know where else to go with it, so they did the only thing that they could, which was really make it just a bit more outrageous. There's a lot more episodes that play on putting Mulder and Scully in just some ridiculous fish out of water type positions. That these episodes are really good. When we get to them, we'll talk about that. But there's commentary there, but they're also largely done for comedy. And I liked it, but you can tell that that's a symptom of like the movie being the top of the mountain. And when you get to the top of the mountain, there's just nowhere else to go. So they're just like, let's do whatever.
That's how I feel about it. And I remember watching season 6 when it first came on and having that feeling, especially an episode we're going to talk about tonight, Triangle. That's
Yes.
the perfect example of, hey, let's just do whatever we want. Obviously, now they're in Los Angeles, so the show is a bit brighter. So I think that is a definite tonal shift. It's not as dark and gloomy and full of shadows as the first 5 seasons. And it's playing to a pop audience, and it accepted that, which is a good and bad thing. I think if the X-Files had tried to continue being this underground cult hit, it wasn't. So how are you going to continue trying to be that? The question is always, okay, but when did they go a bit too far? You could argue season 7 is probably that.
Yeah.
But I think season 6 is the last tight season where they walked that tightrope perfectly of being a pop show as popular as The Simpsons was at the time, or whatever was big at the time. I don't know, 1998, 97. What was big at the time? I don't know. As popular as anything else on TV, and still the weirdest show on TV. and the freakiest show on TV and the goriest show on TV. So it's impressive that they managed to do it. And it's impressive considering the fact that, as we've said many times, Chris Carter wanted to end the series. And he was kind of forced into going ahead post movie when really he wanted the movie to be the end of it. And but the movie was a success, considering the fact that it's coming from a TV show. It made a decent amount of money. It made about as much as maybe the Star Trek movies make, which is pretty good, considering Star Trek has a much longer legacy. I'm talking about the original movies, which is around that 200 million mark. That's a good, you know, payday if you are a TV series trying to make it to the big time. So, before we go on, I do want to mention that there's an interview out there. I forgot to put it in my little news thing. I just listened to an interview with Chris Carter with these guys from the X Files Prop Museum, something like that. Next week, I'll see if I can get the link for it. It's kind of cool. These guys, it's a man and a woman. They just have all the props from all the episodes, and they're really good friends with Chris, and
Wow.
he just makes it to them. So cool little. I think it was like a 30-minute interview. So next week, I'll see if I remember to put the link on there for a current interview. And at the very end, they do ask him a little bit about season 11, and like, oh, I wish the show would go on, and if it were up to us, we'd have like season 12, 13, 14. And he's like, well, there's more to the story. The only thing I'll leave you with is, why was William smiling when he left the water? So that's the big. Okay, I'll have to rewatch to recall what his facial expression was when he left the water. But anyhow, let's get to season 6, guys. But before we do it, let's give props to a legend in television, Mr. Ed Asner, who coincidentally stars in one of the episodes we're going to review tonight. And he
Yeah, he's
passed.
in everything.
He's in everything. He's been around forever. I'll always remember him as Lou Grant. You got Spunk. I hate Spunk. Mary Tyler Moore. I I used to watch Mary Tyler Moore show on Nick at Night. I was addicted to Nick at Night when I was a teenager because I was such a cool kid, guys. And so he'll always be Ed Asner. He'll always be Lou Grant to me. But I know younger generations probably know him from like the Pixar movies. I think he was in Up, which I've never seen, but I hear is the mega tearjerker of the Pixar movies. And most recently, I saw him on Cobra Kai. He played the stepdad to was it Johnny, the blonde guy? You're the
Yeah, I
pro.
guess so. Like I said, I don't didn't know that was him. Like I just saw a screenshot of him in Cobra Kai, and it's like,
Yeah, but
to be
what's the
honest, it
blonde?
didn't look like him. He was the main character. Yeah, that's Johnny.
Yeah, that's Johnny. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
But but he's done everything, guys. I mean, he's been in the Outer Limits. I'm looking here on Wikipedia. Mission Impossible, The Fugitive. Uh, Made appearances as Lou Grant on two other shows, Rhoda and Roseanne. Wow, I didn't know they shared a universe. Roseanne. I knew Rhoda shared a universe, obviously, but not Roseanne. Is that the Roseanne? That's bizarre. I'll have to watch that. And then, mainly he was doing a lot of voiceover stuff as he got older. He was
did
Hudson
a
on
lot of
Gargoyles.
voiceover.
I used to love Gargoyles when I was a kid. Um, he played. He was on Batman the Animated Series,
Yeah,
Boondocks, Granny Goodness, and various DC comic animations. He was the voice of Carl Fredricksen in the Academy Award-winning Pixar film Up. Okay, then did a whole bunch of stuff on the Tonight Show with Jay Leno, and then I guess his last thing in 2020 he guest starred in an episode of Modern Family, and in 2021 played himself in a sketch on Let's Be Real. And before that, Cobra Kai, he was Johnny Lawrence's stepfather, Sid Weinberg or Weinberg. So, TV legend gone. We thought he had died. We thought he had died a long time ago. Uh, but at least Pete, I can't be sad with stuff like that because he lived a long, fruitful life, and he
Yeah,
kept working until pretty much the last day. So he went doing what he loved. So good for him. Good for him. He had spoke. Let's get to it. Let's
yeah.
start. Uh, we're going with the beginning, which the last episode of season 5 is called "The End." And it premiered on November 8th, 1998. It was written by series creator Chris Carter and directed by Kim Manners, and part of the mythology arc. It's kind of picks up from the end, but also from the movie, viewed by 20 million
Mhm.
people, 0.34 million people. It's got an 8.4 rating on IMDb. So the beginning is the first episode of the sixth season of the X Files, just after having returned from Antarctica, which we explained in our last episode how they did that. Mulder and Scully conduct an unofficial search for a vicious alien in Phoenix, Arizona. So, what are your thoughts on this season opener, Peter?
Yeah, this was basically like an extension of the movie, really. I mean, I remember actually when this first aired, I hadn't seen the movie, and I was like, "What the fuck happened, man? Like, if you didn't see the movie, you kind of missed some important shit here because this basically follows directly from the movie, like days after Antarctica. This story that had a nice, neat little ending in the movie, no, it's actually still going on. So that was something I liked about it. It's a great movie, and I do like the follow up. The story is basically these government employees who've been working with this new variant of the black oil. One of them has gotten infected with it. And as we know from the movie, this shit no longer just possesses you, but it gestates inside you, and big old alien pops out of your gut, which is actually what happens in the teaser scene. So right there from the beginning, we have an alien from the black oil virus has gestated, and it's running around loose. Um, Unfortunately, Mulder and Scully can't come to the rescue because, although we learned at the end of the movie that the X Files have been reopened, they're totally in the fucking doghouse. And to their shock, they discover that none other than Jeffrey Spender and Mulder's former squeeze, Diana Fowley, they get the X Files and they
And
have to stay the fuck out of it. And this really sticks in Mulder's craw, like not just because he hates Spender, but because Diana was his girl, and they used to be on the same page, and he feels like she's kind of sold him out. She tries to justify it by saying that she took the job because she wanted to preserve like the integrity of his work, but Mulder's not buying it. So at any rate, alien hunt on the way. The smoking man is looking for the alien too because it kind of escaped on his watch. And his tool for finding it is our boy Gibson, who was cruelly abducted by the smoking man in his last appearance. And wow, things have not been good to him in Smoking Man's tender, loving care. He's got his head shaved. He's got scars in it. Like, he's just been torturing this poor kid. He's just a little boy.
I know.
But
Just when you kind of start liking the Smoky Man a little bit, you realize he's an evil bastard.
yes, yes. So the Smoking Man is using him because, besides the fact that he can read minds, he's also got alien DNA. So he can kind of sense where this thing is. So they're tracking him. Mulder and Scully are tracking him. The Our new X Files agents are tracking him, but nobody can seem to find it. And it's still like killing things left and right, killing people actually. At some point, little Gibson manages to escape and finds his way back to Mulder and Scully. And there is actually a great scene where Scully, of their maternal instincts, looks at him like all sad and shit, and he reads her mind. He's like Frankenstein, really? But yeah, he does look that terrible. And it all comes down to a showdown in a nuclear power plant, and we see the end game of these things. The creepy gestated alien is actually just the beginning. Once it goes through this phase, it like morphs into like your traditional gray skinned, round face, big black eyed, regular extraterrestrials. So we see what the end game is. Of course, nothing works out for their insubordination. Mulder and Scully are assigned to work under A.D. Kirsch, who hates their guts and has pretty much ordered them to stay the fuck away from anything X Files related. We find out that Fowley does not have Mulder's best interests at heart because she totally fudges what really happened. And Gibson is left behind in the power plant with the alien. So his fate, he turns up later, but at this point in time, it's like, what about the kid? So yeah, it doesn't actually tie up any loose ends from the movie. It explains a little more, but it is a nice follow up to the movie, and it gets the season running on at a pretty fast beat, I would say.
Yeah, of all the season openers, this is probably one of the quickest paced ones, and maybe season six in general. It's kind of moving at a movie pace. I think. Like when I watch the episodes, they much faster than seasons before. Look at this guy. It's very similar to you. As a first time watcher of the show, I was very confused starting season 6 when the previously on played through. As I later learned, it features scenes from both season 5 in addition to the X Files movie that premiered right before the start of season 6. So he was a little bit confused, just like you were. And this is the first, this is the first appearance of Kirsch. What an asshole, but a
Yep.
great actor because sign of a great actor when he makes you hate his guts right away, and that's exactly what he does. But I dug it. I gave it 3.5 stars here. Kind of sucks that they couldn't follow more of this alien being loose, but on a TV budget it makes sense that they followed the kid and what happens to him, and not this, because it was a freaky alien, man, and those scenes were really
Yes.
gory, really great. And somebody in the X Files group mentioned the same thing. They're like, "Oh, what fuck the X Files is that for season 6? Instead of following this alien, they followed this nerdy little kid." But it's understandable given what the. Am I sharing my Google Docs by mistake? Oh no, I thought I was. And there's the alien right there. There's the scene with it. The guy's whole torso, whatever, his chest cavity coming totally out. I loved
Yeah.
how at the beginning it
Because
does have
these
previous.
aren't little baby xenomorphs, man. They're big when they come out.
They're big. They come out big. Yes. And I did like how when I was watching it, it's like previously on and had scenes from the movie. I just thought that was cool. Some callbacks. Roush
Mm.
Technologies. If we remember, Roush Technologies has been mentioned before on the X Files. If I'm not mistaken, let me double check here. It oh my god, it's mentioned in the episode Redux, and it's said to not only have bankrolled Michael Kershkow, which I'm so glad when he comes back, and Scott Blevins, but are also involved in congressional lobbying in regards to biotech issues. So it's cool that they had this little callback to stuff the fans will remember. The beginning. So we were talking about showboating for season 6, and it's so cool that it starts with this big desert scene. Because we're in LA now, we can have desert scenes, and they really
Yeah.
played off. Even when we get to the episode Dreamland, it's like, yeah, we can do stuff down here now. A couple of funny lines here about Men in Black is a damn good movie. um, and a little bit of a shout out to The Simpsons because the nuclear plant guy is named Homer. But
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
yeah, although, come on, Scully, man, nothing will happen to you. I got you. And then she loses the kid like the next scene. She was a
Yeah,
terrible.
actually, his next appearance, he actually brings that up because he says that I'm not going to let anything happen to you. He's like, you said that once before, so Gibson's not so trusting of the FBI no more.
But I thought it was so shitty because you got this kid who's a hard, very high risk, and you leave him in the room by himself to do whatever. Come on, you gotta be in that room with him. Gibson, 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 and he's gone. Um, and of course, I love the addition of Kirk. It's kind of repetitive in the sense that, oh my god, the X Files are closed again. We got to go through this again. But they managed to do cool stuff with Mulder and Scully while they're off the X Files, mainly because the X Files is open, like Pete said. But we got Spender and Diane. Oh, which I hate. I hate her. And also Chris Owens, who plays um, Spender. He's officially, also starring. So he plays a big part of this season. He's in it a lot. Not my favorite character too, but bearable. But definitely not my favorite of the X Files. Rogues Gallery, whatever, you can kill him. Now, Pete, who said you can kill a man, but you can't kill what he stands for unless you first kill his spirit? Sounds like something
I
that.
do, I do believe the cigarette smoking man said that.
Yeah, I think so too. I wrote that quote down, but I forgot. I forgot to say who said it. You know, I'm not a fan of the kid, but I did love the alien. Decent opening. From now on, you're gonna kind of have a theme running with me, which is the mythology episodes aren't really gonna be my favorites. Similar to season four, I think I dogged on pretty much every mythology episode in season four because in that case it was the fact that, hey, Chris Carter wanted to make the movie after season four. Fox says no, give us one more season, so he just drags and drags and drags, and then the mythology gets really good in season five because it's building up to the movie. But then, like Pete said, they hit the mountain, give us the exclamation point of this whole mythology, and then there's really nowhere to go but down. And the mythology just gets all sorts of muddled around season six. I mean, there's a few bright spots, but for the most part, I much prefer these standalones, which brings us to our first standalone, which I think is a classic, one of my favorite X Files episodes ever, called Drive. That's got our man Heisenberg. Yeah,
Yep.
before Breaking Bad. And there's quite a few articles, guys, out there. If you Google, how the X Files made Breaking Bad, and how Bryan
Hmm.
Cranston got the job, it's basically because of this episode where he showed. Hmm, excuse me. I hope I unmuted myself. I guess I did. Okay. Sorry, I was eating a little watermelon. I'm hungry. Anyway, so yeah, he kind of showed his acting chops, his dramatic acting chops. But before we get to that, look at this. Premiered November 15th, 1998, to 18.5 million viewers. Written by Vince Gilligan, 8.7 rating. Mulder finds himself forced to drive a man in a high speed dash across the Southwest in an effort to prevent the man's head from exploding. This is like Speed, X Files style. And basically, that's it. It's a very simple plot, but it works. The teaser is just this guy driving his wife. He's kind of being chased by the police. And then when he stops the car, her head explodes. Mulder and Scully go to investigate. They take this kind of side trip, say, oh no, we'll just tell Kirsch we were, checking in on some possible uh, weed plantations down in wherever they were, Arizona or wherever. And so they end up there, and then Mulder gets caught in the middle of this in Nevada. He gets caught inside the car with the guy, and he realizes he's got to drive. He's got to drive, drive, drive because there's something in this guy's head that if he slows down, his head's gonna explode. And that's the whole episode. But what's cool about it, like I said, Bryan Cranston. I knew Bryan Cranston because I was a fan of Malcolm in the Middle, one of my favorite shows at the time. It was sort of like The Simpsons, but live action, real cynical show about the average American family. And he was silly and he was funny. He was great. I think that some people forget that he's a very good comedic actor because of what he did in Breaking Bad and then some of the parts he got after because of that. But yeah, he was just silly old dad. And then all of a sudden he shows that, yeah, I can do dramatic. I can do dramatic and do it really well. And he's the main impetus for this entire episode. He's playing Patrick Garland Crump. And let me see here. I do have some notes. And thus begin experiments. Newsreels begin the episode. So I like this too that they bring it to. I like how the X Files does this, and every once it brings it to the real world where it's possible that these experiments are happening now. It's like the mini mythologies. Like we've had episodes in the past where some pathogen got out. Remember what was the one, Pete, where the guy had that big ass bubble in his cheek and he's trying to get a bus to Canada? That wasn't right
Oh
these
yeah,
days.
yeah, yeah. That
Although
was
he might be able to
the
hide it.
prison one. That was the
Yeah,
prison
where
one,
they're
which
sending like
also had a
pigs.
Breaking Bad alumni in it.
Oh yeah, the guy that played the cop, exactly.
Yeah,
The agent.
Dean Norris. Yeah,
Yep. And so Mulder and Scully, they're doing domestic terrorism. They're doing just regular grunt work. And I wrote here, I think I saw this movie. It's Speed. So they even make a reference in the show that hey, this is a little bit like Speed. I love Scully doing her science shit. So while Mulder's out there trying to deal with this guy on the ground, she's in the lab trying to figure everything out. And Kirsch is the ultimate asshole in the end, because he does kind of castigate them for being out in Nevada when they shouldn't have been, because it's on the news. He finds out.
yeah,
Um, and I gave it 5 stars. This is probably for sure going to be in my top 10 of the season. And it's probably in one of top 20 or so, or top 10 for the series as a whole. Really great episode.
yeah. I don't know if I would rate it that high. I think it plays better in hindsight because of Bryan Cranston and what we know about him and what this part did for him. But honestly, when I heard that he'd been on the X Files and that played a key part in him getting cast in Breaking Bad, I couldn't remember the episode at all. And when I watched it again this time, after having watched the show twice, I still couldn't remember it. It's good, and I think though Cranston makes the episode largely because the thing about his character is he's obviously sympathetic because he's in great pain and he's being chased by the cops and he can not just he has to keep driving but he has to drive west. He has to drive in a very specific direction.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
he not only has to drive, but maintain a certain speed going a certain direction. But over the course of his time with Mulder, you get the impression that even if this guy wasn't, kind of being forced to be the bad guy, he's kind of a jerk. Like, even if his head wasn't about to explode, you get the impression if you met this guy in real life, he's like the kind of person who like is rude to store employees and just a general asshole. He uses an anti-Semitic slur against Mulder, but I never really thought of as Jewish. But I think that's just the way he is. Is like Mulder. That sounds like a Jewish name, and dumps some racial slurs on him as well. So he's able to play the part of a guy who ordinarily you would think is just like such a jerk, and here he is doing a real asshole thing. But the same thing, you feel bad for him because nobody deserves this. Like, he's seen his poor wife's head explode, and now he knows for sure it's going to happen to him. And it comes to, kind of a heart. The conclusion is really understated. Actually, that's another thing I liked about it, because what they figure out, Scully goes to his home, and they find that there's like some kind of Navy antenna in his neighborhood that's emitting like this experimental type high electronic frequency waves, and like all the dogs and the birds in the neighborhood have had their heads explode. So she figures out that this antenna is what's doing it, and she comes up with a solution to give him an injection into his inner ear to relieve the pressure. So she relays this to Mulder. They have this great plan, and then we see where they're supposed to meet, and the guy just didn't make it. And that's the end of the episode. It just goes black. So I thought that was a really good ending. Just like, we tried, it looked like everything was going to work out. Nope, shitty, better luck next time. The end. Another thing I liked about it, though, is you kind of glossed it over a bit when you said that they're doing domestic terrorism. What they're doing, literally, where were they? They're in Idaho, I believe. They're
Mm-hmm.
investigating farmers for buying large amounts of fertilizer because it can be
Fertilizer.
used in explosive, just to
Right.
verify that they need it. So this is what an asshole Kirsch is. He literally has them chasing shit. And I believe Mulder says something to the effect. So yeah, it shows like literally how shitty their jobs have become. But definitely Cranston, most memorable thing about it for me.
Yeah. But you know what? I was like you. I had no memory of this episode from first run, and like I said, I mean, this is episode two. I definitely remember watching the season premiere, of course. Like, X Files is back after the movie. I was there. I definitely remember watching the next episode
Mm-hmm.
and all Triangle. Like, I remember it clearly watching it at home in Dreamland, but for whatever reason, this one just escaped my memory. So when I did the rewatch a couple of years back, I was like, oh shit. Because I had just finished watching Breaking Bad, too. I waited till the series was over and then I binged it. And I was like, oh shit, it's fucking Bryan Cranston. It was weird because I had the same experience as you, just like the first time around. But then this time I was like, I was looking forward to watching it because I remember I really enjoyed it. And I dig it, man. It's one of those just character episodes that works for me. Now, I did see something here about what the Seafarer, well, no, the Elf Communication System, Project Seafarer, was not just invented for the episode. Oh, excuse me. It actually does exist, although not in Nevada. The two antennas are located in Clam Lake, Wisconsin, and Gwin, Michigan. And then Seafarer was the subject of many protests about the environmental impact of elf waves. And then this judge halted the operation on both sites pending further environmental testing. And the U.S. Navy spent 25 million studying the environmental impact that came to the conclusion that any effects were similar to those produced by power distribution cables. So people didn't accept it, blah blah blah, and it was a perfect topic, of course, for the X Files. They just kind of X filed it up. So kind of cool. And I remember when I was a kid, I used to watch Unsolved Mysteries a lot. And there was always these episodes about people that heard these weird hums in their neighborhood and these weird vibrations and stuff, and it would give them nightmares. And so this is a cool subject. You know, what is the government doing as far as all these antennas, and are they doing experiments on us, trying to hypnotize us, et cetera, et cetera, make us all Manchurian candidates? And I like that I had totally passed that over, Pete, that you mentioned that he was a real asshole too, the Bryan Cranston's character. But credit to his acting, that you do feel bad for the guy in the end. You're like, well, doesn't deserve to get his head blown off in perfect ending. But let's move ahead. Speaking of Triangle, this is the X Files now, just you know, doing whatever the fuck it wants.
Yes.
And it premiered on November 22nd, 1998 to 18.2 million viewers. Written by Chris Carter, directed by Chris Carter. Lost in the Bermuda Triangle, Mulder believes he has traveled back to 1939 and has to evade Nazis aboard a historic British sailing ship similarly lost, encountering individuals who seem strikingly familiar to him. More than strikingly. But go ahead, Pete. Take this one over.
Yeah, this one I remember because it starts with Mulder lost at sea, and he gets pulled on to this boat that it turns out to be the boat he was looking for. We get a little backstory that Mulder was in the Bermuda Triangle looking for the Queen Anne, which is a luxury liner that disappeared in the Bermuda Triangle. However, it turns out that this is the Queen Anne, and at first he's all real happy to have, finally captured this white whale, as it were. Except he's in 1939, and it's under the control of Nazis. And if that isn't enough, the head of the Nazis in charge of the ship is the smoking man. What a wacky episode, man. This whole episode, well, you got this thing going on with Mulder trying to evade Nazis on the ship, and like all the characters in the show were there. It's definitely a nod to Wizard of Oz, It's like, and you were there, and you were there. But they are. Spender's there. Scully is there with some pretty foxy flapper hairdo, and they get a kiss. But while all this is going on, we find ourselves, from Scully's point of view, she is looking for Mulder, who has gone missing in the Bermuda Triangle, and she enlists the lone gunman and Skinner to help her track him down. So what's going on here? Is Mulder really back in time? What are the implications of this? Why are there duplicates of everyone in his life on this boat? And we get a little plot here where they're after this weapon called Thor's hammer, which turns out to actually be a scientist who could possibly go on to build the nuclear bomb. And what ultimately comes of it is that it was all a dream. At least that's what's implied. At the end, the lone gunman and Scully travel to the Bermuda Triangle, and they find him, and it has like that Wizard of Oz ending. Like, you were there, Dorothy, or whoever the hell the characters' real names are, but you were there and you were there. But there's a little more to it than that. Like, as crazy as this episode was, the cinematic aspect of it was really ambitious, because it was actually filmed in 4 11-minute takes. That's the amazing thing about it. It has like this really frantic pace, but if you look at it, you're always following the characters, where they're going. They're going from room to room, but you're like in their shoes. So the entire thing was shot in real time in 4 takes, which is pretty amazing. It also, I couldn't find any reference to this, but it reminded me a lot of a great early 80s movie, 1980s, like the year 1980, called The Final Countdown. I don't know if you ever saw that. It was one of those movies that was like really big in the cinemas, but it didn't catch on with subsequent audiences. But it starred Martin Sheen and Kirk Douglas. And in it, the crew of the USS Nimitz gets transported back in time to just before the invasion of Pearl Harbor. And they have this ethical dilemma about, do we try and stop Pearl Harbor? It's our duty as the U.S. Navy, but if we do that, we could totally fuck up history. Who knows what could happen? So it kind of had that aspect going for it too, of traveling back in time, not wanting to mess with the future, but still having to deal um, with the situation that you're in and the reality of it. Like for all Mulder knows, he's stuck in 1939 forever. So yeah, a little bit of Hitchcock in there because he was the master of filming in real time. A little bit of Wizard of Oz, a little bit of Final Countdown, um,
A little
and
bit of Semisonic, believe it or not.
yeah, okay,
1990s band that Chris Carter with the split screen. It says here that
okay,
he was inspired by that video for their song. I think what is it, Closing Time, whatever. So
okay,
he was inspired by the band Semisonics for the split screen shots, uh,
okay. The
with
split
which
screen
is
was nice.
really nice. Yeah, and this
Yeah,
and that's the real draw of this episode. I put here in my note, the first note that I said, "Hey, it's the one shot episode." Obviously, not one shot, like Pete said. It's cut into, and even within those shots, there's a lot of masking it. Like when they get they're going from one room to another. The door will close or something, and it'll open again. So obviously, they were able to make some cuts, but they disguise it really well.
yeah,
Uh, it's very obvious, but artistically done so that you feel like you're in one long shot. Um, of course, Cigarette Smoking Man is the Nazi, and poor
yeah.
what's his name, Krishner, whatever.
Uh,
The director, the new AD Kirsch,
yeah,
he's he's down in the galleys. He's down
yeah,
driving the ship. But I like how Swalbo's like trust no one. He does the
yes,
line. The cross, but that's my favorite shot in the scene. The two crossover Scullys, because you get
mm-hmm.
Scully running around the FBI. No, she actually gets on the ship and she's looking for Mulder, and you get the old school Scully, and they're running around, and then they cross each other, and then they end up on this opposite side of the screen. So cool, man. And also, I love how Mulder kisses old school Scully, but gets a punch in the face. But no
Yeah,
luck in the present when he says, "I love you, Scully," and she's like, "Oh, brother," really
yeah.
funny
That was a
episode.
great moment, though. Yeah,
It works. And how it's cool how in the end she is his constant. Anybody that's a fan of Lost from season 4, the best episode of Lost is Constant, where one of the main characters is stuck in a sort of a time loop, and the one way that he can save himself is to give this information to this woman that he really loves. And he needs to have faith and believe that she is going to carry that across. And because he's flitting through time. So he needs to find one thing that's constant in order to get his brain to like stick to one time. And what it is the love of his life. It's a beautiful episode. And it deals
yeah.
with time travel and stuff.
And
And in
there is a
the end,
nice moment. There is a nice
yes,
moment at the end where, after Scully's like, "Yeah, whatever, I love you. You're on drugs," he touches his jaw where the 1939 Scully punched him, and it's still sore, and he's kind of smiles.
yeah, she's his constant, man. She's the one. Um, it is possible that everything that Mulder experienced prior to waking up in the hospital happens in his mind. He could have just been having an oxygen deprived dream.
Yeah,
Totally possible. Um, and also, what Pete mentioned a lot of the Wizard of Oz, but it's supposed to be an homage to the Wizard of Oz. Um, Mulder's in this sort of alternate reality, running into people that look like the people in the real reality. The performing band in the ballroom is named Ira Bush in the Lollipop Guild, okay, which is dealing with the non-Oz name of the Wicked Witch of the West, okay, in the Lollipop Guild, we all know the Munchkin sing. Mulder rents his boat, the Lady Garland, okay. Captain Yip Harburg was so named for the Wizard of Oz lyricist, Yip Harburg. An obscure reference, but the altered tagline which was in German, reads, "The truth is somewhere out there." That could possibly be an homage to
Hmm.
Somewhere Over the Rainbow. And at the end of the episode, Mulder wakes up in a hospital bed in a scene that nearly parallels the end of the film. The three lone gunmen represent the Cowardly Lion, the Tin Men, and the Scarecrow, who have come to see Dorothy after her dream. Furthermore, Skinner mentions Toto. Scully says there's no place like home, and Mulder tells Scully, "I love you." So definitely, it was more than just, similar to the Wizard of Oz, but a definite homage. And what I think here is like this is it. This is the X Files beginning to really go out on a limb, experimenting with the show, which, like I said at the beginning, I think works in season 6, and it works beautifully. I think they walk that tightrope perfectly of still being the freaky dark X Files, but saying, "Hey, let's make this show the Outer Limits now all of a sudden, and just every week see if we can put Mulder and Scully in these outlandish, crazy situations, and how can they get out of it." And yeah, again, for the most part, it works. And of course, the epic kiss in the elevator.
Yes.
Uh, oh, and there's a funny thing about this that I was reading here on the wiki that I didn't know. This all had to be done on in one take, this elevator stuff. And sometimes, every time Scully gets in and out of the elevator, there's a cleverly disguised cut because the elevator is actually stationary. However, in a scene where Scully isn't getting reception on her cell phone, every time the elevator rises to a new floor, the crew had to switch the set, everything, all the extras, the props, very quickly. So, according to Chris Carter, this led to funny shots where the doors would open too early and reveal crew members scurrying about with pictures and props in their hands. So that's kind of cool. And also another thing that I noticed when I was watching is how when she's running, she kind of trips, and it looks like she didn't mean to do it, and it's true. She actually didn't mean to do it, but luckily she didn't fall because if she had fallen, she would have had to start all over, to do the scene from the very beginning. So I guess they just kept it in. But great, 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 great stuff. This is definitely a favorite of mine. So now we're moving ahead to a strong opening of a fucking season here. We got Dreamland.
Oh
Dreamland comes
yeah.
two-parter,
Yes.
and let's get up here and give you some notes on Dreamland. It, excuse me, it premiered on November 29th, 1998 to 17.48 million viewers, a 9.1 rating on IMDb. It deserves it. Really fucking great episode.
Yeah.
Um, and on a tip, Mulder and Scully visit the infamous Area 51, where a strange event swaps Mulder's personality with that of Morris Fletcher, a shadowy government agent. Um, so yes,
Yeah.
Mulder's out there going to get a tip from this guy, which is played by
Michael McKean, yet another
famous.
guy who would go on to work for Vince Gilligan.
Yes.
Not on Breaking Bad, but he worked on Better Call Saul.
Oh, really? You're a big fan of Better Call
Yeah.
Saul, right? Everybody says this is like the best
Yeah,
show ever. I still
it's a
haven't
great
watched
show. I don't think it's as good as Breaking Bad, but it's as good as for what it is. But yeah, Michael McKean, he's been in all kinds of stuff. He's in Spinal
Spinal
Tap.
Tap. Yeah, that's where I
Yes.
kind of like. I don't know what he's
Plus,
done of late, but I used to know him like from way back in the day.
he was in a lot
Yeah.
of Christopher Guest movies as well, like Best of Show and A Mighty Wind.
Oh, I love those. Yeah.
Yeah.
So really great guest star. But let me see what I got here for Dream One. Mulder Scully out to meet an informant at a military base, so they got body swap. And I actually had put here who plays Morris. So episode definitely has a mixed tone. It's comedy, but at the same time, it seems like it's hardcore mythos. So you're stuck in the middle, and it's cool. I think Pete, this might be the first, or I mean, I haven't gotten further along in the series, so or maybe the only two-parter that's not officially mythology. Like I think it's one of
Yeah.
the Monster of the Week two-parters. Uh,
Yeah.
so then the comedy starts with the fact that, hey, Morris goes with Scully, but he's in Duchovny's body, and and uh, Morris's brain is Mulder, so he goes home. Mulder sucks at being a family man, um, and there's a lot of Star Trek references, which I really liked about this episode. And poor Morris, his life sucks. He hasn't been laid in 10 years. He's just got this nagging wife. The kids kind of
That was
hate him.
another good piece of guest casting, actually. Nora Dunn. Nora Dunn played his wife.
Oh, she played his wife.
Yeah.
Was great. She was great, and especially when you consider some of the moms that they have on these episodes, which are horrible. She was absolutely great. And then we get, the usual X Files jokey stuff, which I love. How Saddam is just an actor from Tulsa. Okay, that Morris set up. So the
Yeah.
government is responsible.
Yeah.
Like remember back when the cigarette
We
smoking
found
man.
him doing dinner theater.
Yes. Remember when the cigarette smoking man made sure that the Buffalo Bills never won the Super Bowl? So
Yeah.
if you're a child of the '90s, you remember that very well. The Buffalo Bills 3 times they went to the Super Bowl, 3 in a row, and they lost every time. Um, so um, so that's the comedy aspect of the show. Before I think episode 2 gets a little bit more serious as far as like we really got to figure out how to revert this. And on the other side, Morris is having the time of his life, even though he
Yes.
realizes like this guy's a fucking loser. He's got a hot partner. He's good looking as hell, and he's a loser. Similar to what's the one with the episode, Small Potatoes. Where,
Yes.
where the
Yes.
guy gets into shapeshifts into Mulder, and it's like, how is this guy such a loser? So Morris does not want to go back to his life. He's like, I'm here to stay. And he's already setting up for, um, getting, bagging Scully. And I guess we can kind of, join both here because in episode 2, great scenes, where he pimps Mulder's apartment,
Yeah.
and gets the waterbed and invites Scully.
He
to a
does
nice-
nail Kirsch's secretary, actually, in the first episode.
Yes.
Scully goes over to his apartment, and Kirsch's secretary is leaving, still getting dressed.
Hmm. And then he lays him down on the waterbed, and that's when Scully finally it hits her. Like, this is not Mulder.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
baby me, and you'll be peeing through a catheter. I love this. And then you have the classic mirror scene, of course. Very vaudeville, old stuff. So more of
And
the
that
X-Files.
waterbed winds up playing a key role in later episodes as well.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Yes, another really cool kind of whacked out episode. So again, the theme here, guys, season 6. The theme is you just got to roll with it. You just got to roll with it. This is not the first 5 seasons of the X-Files anymore. They're just playing around with the format, with the possibilities of what these characters can do, and some people dug it, I guess, given the fact that slowly the ratings went down and down and down. Some people didn't. But I think season 6 is still really strong, ratings wise. It's still one of their strongest seasons. So, what you got for this one, Pete?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we got us some more Mulder porn references in this one. The first thing he does when he winds up back at Morris's place is he's too disoriented to go up and sleep with this strange woman who's supposed to be his wife. So he puts on porn and falls asleep watching porn. And his wife comes down the next day and finds the porn still on and him saying Scully's name in his sleep. So throughout the two, so throughout the 2 episodes, like obviously their marriage is already in trouble, and now she finds him watching porn and saying Scully's name. So she instantly has like this assumption that he's having an affair with this mysterious woman named Scully, which of course Mulder denies because he doesn't want to get involved in any of this family drama. And then, of course, it all comes to a head when Scully figures everything out, comes to visit him at the house, and introduces herself as Scully. That was a great scene. Next,
Yes,
they're trying to figure out how to get him back in his body. In the meantime, his wife is throwing all his shit out.
I
The
know
bit
that's
where he forgets his kids' names, well, he doesn't, he knows the kids' names because his wife has mentioned them, but he doesn't know who is who because they both have very non-gender specific names, and he
mm,
makes his daughter cry. That was wonderful. So I loved the scenes of Mulder being Fletcher every bit as much as I like the scenes of Fletcher being Mulder. Although those scenes were great too, just because of how carefree he is. He spends his all he wants to do is play golf on the computer. Every
mm.
time Scully tries to bring his attention to something, he's playing golf. He also slaps her on the ass, which she takes
Yes,
pretty
that's a great scene.
yeah, which she takes pretty well. And I think before the waterbed, the thing that makes him most out of character is he becomes such a good little boy for Kirsch. He's like, I'm really sorry for
Yes.
my insubordination. He rats out Scully. Scully's still trying to solve the original case, which is
Mhm.
who is this informant who told them to come out to Area 51?
Yes.
And Scully's trying to solve this, and of course Fletcher's trying to protect his interest and steer her away from it. He's like, just forget about it. It's nothing. Listen to Kirsch. I'm turning over a new leaf. In the meantime, back in Area 51, Mulder is suspected of being the informant to Mulder and Scully in his Fletcher identity. They think he's the one who has been passing information, and he weasels his way out of it because it turns out that the information that he did try and pass, which is the black box from the UFO, was actually useless. And the real informant is actually his commanding officer. And there's a great
Yes.
scene in episode 2 where they all meet along with Fletcher's wife, all at the same bar at the same time, and they're all trying to hide from each other. It was brilliant. But where
Yeah.
it did get a bit serious is the realization that there's no way to change this back and there's no way to prove it. Like, it's a
Mhm.
really sad scene between Mulder and Scully when they realize, like, holy fuck, you are stuck as this guy forever, and I'm stuck with this douchebag for my partner. And there's nothing we can do about it. And she tells him, what does she say? I'd kiss you if you weren't so ugly. So that was a really poignant scene.
Yeah, I like that.
But of course, the effect reverses itself back and everything goes back to normal. And the weird thing is,
Oh, we lost you a little bit.
nobody remembers.
Yeah,
They
nobody
go back to the
remembers. But
do
the
in comic
waterbed's still
books.
there.
Yeah, yeah. It's one of those things they do in comic books where it's like, okay, we can do this whole crazy story and then just reset it. Never happened. But yes, one of my all time favorites. Definitely, yeah, I would say it's my favorite two parter of all of them.
Yeah, and it caught me by surprise. I forgot about this episode, watching it. And I was like, oh shit. Because I was like, Dreamland Part 1. I was like, oh no, not another mythology episode. I kind of got that feeling when I saw the opening crawl, whatever. Um, and then I was like, oh, it's this episode. I remember this one in bits and pieces. And by the
Mm-hmm.
way, it's not that Morris hasn't been late in 10 years. It's Mulder that hasn't been late in 10 years. When he gets to Mulder's house, like, this guy hasn't been late in 10 years. And then we see that Mulder's bedroom is just not a bedroom, right? It's full of boxes and files, and he turns it into the pimp um, castle. And it's so
Yeah,
funny 'cause at the end, they don't remember anything, but I think Scully shows up and is like, "Have you redecorated? Like, what's going on with your house?" He's like, "I don't know." And yes, like Pete said, that does play an important part in a later episode. Well, not that much later. I think it might be next podcast we talk
No,
about. Is it much later?
no,
I thought
it's a few
so
episodes
10,
later.
12. Well, we'll get there eventually. Anyway, we're gonna end tonight, guys. We started with Ed Asner. We're gonna end with Ed Asner, okay? And we got How the Ghost Stole Christmas. What
Damn.
very, very sentimental episode. I have a little list that I did for my blog of my um, top 10 favorite non-Christmassy Christmas stuff, shows and movies, and this is what was on the list: How the Ghost Stole Christmas. And it premiered on December 13th, 1998 to 17.31 million viewers. Directed and written and directed by Chris Carter. 8.4 million viewers. Oh, sorry, 8.4 rating on IMDb. On Christmas Eve, Mulder and Scully investigate a house that Mulder claims is haunted and searches for the supposed ghosts haunting the house. But the spirits within the house have a plan for Mulder and Scully on their own. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the better Christmas episodes they did. Not just Ed Asner, but we got Lily Tomlin in here.
Yes, two
And it's
powerhouse.
basically just a classic haunted house story. Mulder, having no life, is spending Christmas Eve staking out a house where two people killed themselves in a lover's pact back in 1917. And he wants Scully to join him on this little ghost stakeout. And she's like, fuck this, because she actually has a family and a life. So Mulder goes into the house, and Scully realizes he's got her keys. So she goes in after him, and the door locks behind them, and they find they can't get out. In the meantime, we are very aware that they are being observed by the inhabitants of the mansion, who are played by Ed Asner and Lily Tomlin. And it turns out this is their Christmas tradition. They like to lure people to their home and drive them into a lover's murder suicide pact. And it's been a long time. So they welcome Mulder and Scully as their guests. And the whole episode is really just them doing ghost things to fuck with them and turn them against each other. First, they find these two corpses, a man and a woman, who are dressed exactly like them. So this is a bad omen. Then yeah, then they split up, and they have individual encounters with the ghosts, where the ghosts try and sell each of them on the fact that the other is going to kill them. And it escalates to the point where they do appear to kill each other. It ends with, well, not ends, but the haunting ends actually with Mulder finding Scully bleeding on the floor. He tries to help her. She shoots him. But in both cases, pretended to be the other one attempting to kill them. So when they do meet, it is actually this confrontation. But it turns out it's all an illusion, and they escape with their lives, and the ghosts are disappointed that they almost had them. And it ends with Mulder and Scully exchanging Christmas gifts, even though they said they would not. And the implication here is kind of like these ghosts worked really hard to turn them against each other. They did every nasty ghost trick in the book, to the point where they even almost fooled the audience. But their
Mhm.
trust for each other is so great, and their love for each other is so great, that the ghosts failed. and the spirit of Christmas won in the end. So, for all its morbidity, it is kind of heartwarming.
Oh yeah.
It is funny. It's it's funny, but it's got heart, and it definitely speaks to a lot of things that the X Files are all about. And we had two great guest stars. So
Oh yeah. No hard
yes,
hitters. Two legends.
yeah, yeah, I love this one. I
Uh,
loved all six of these episodes, man. What a great run.
no, and I was kind of cheating a little bit and looking ahead, and I see 3.5 stars, 5 stars, 4.5 stars. So I really, really loved this beginning here of season six. Really strong opening to a season, and some one-liners here that I really liked, or just little scene drops. I love at the beginning when Scholar's whole Scholar. There you go. We've shipped them.
Sculler and Moldy.
Yes. Scully's New Year's resolution is kind of like don't follow Mulder into bullshit, but she can't help herself. And the fact that she doesn't believe in ghosts, but can't wait to get the fuck out of the house. It's so out of character, how scared she is, but at the same time, it's played so perfectly by Gillian Anderson. She's so scared. And then she goes into that science rant, the classic Scully science rant, to hide her fear. So a lot of great, character moments there, played perfectly. The two of them, they have really great comedic timing. The two of them, and of course Ed Asner. The probably two best scenes are when they got both of them alone, and
Mm.
Ed is talking to Scully and talking about her partner, how he's got some paramasturbatory obsession. Uh,
Yeah,
um, he Wait. Oh no. He's talking to Mulder. He's giving him an analytical breakdown of him, and
yeah,
how he's telling him, "Miss Scully doesn't really like you. She would rather stick her finger in a wall socket than hang out with you. And I bet you
yeah,
stole car keys to get her to follow you, and he did in the
yeah,
end." Uh, and then Lily Tomlin is the one that's talking to Scully in a later season. And I love her line where after she opens up her gown to show that she's a ghost, and she's like, I don't show my hole to just anyone.
yeah,
Some really great lines. And this season pushes the romance, the Mulder Scully, because we almost got the kiss in the movie. Although I didn't get a chance to see, Pete had mentioned that there's an alternate version where they do kiss, but we don't get the kiss yet. We get the kiss in season seven. I just saw that episode, but we don't get the kiss in the movie. But it's out there. It's confirmed. They love each other, and this episode does push that even more. How connected the two of them are. I mean, think about it, Pete. She could have been anywhere in the world. She could have been with her family. She could have, but she's with Mulder on Christmas Eve to go to a haunted house. If that isn't a girl that it's got the hots for you, then what is? I can't get a girl to
yeah,
go with me on a regular old Friday night. So this is definitely pushing that. And of course, we just gave Mr. Asner a nice rest in peace, and you couldn't ask for two better guest stars. And Lily Tomlin, who's absolutely amazing, great, 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 both in theater and television. She does that show now that a lot of people love, right? What's that one with Jane Fonda? I don't know if it's still going on, where the two older ladies.
I have no
Um,
idea.
yeah, our friend Kimmy uh, really likes that show. Lily Tomlin and Jane Fonda show. It was on Netflix. Uh, Grace and Frankie. Yeah. It ran for 7 seasons. Wow. And it's really loved. 94% of people like this show. Got an 88% on Rotten Tomato. Uh, I haven't watched it, but glad that she's also out there still doing her thing. And like Pete said, it's a cute episode. It's cute and it just works on the strength of these two characters because these two characters are really what makes the X Files tick. And which is why I think a lot of people left, like myself, at the end of season seven when they saw that, hey, the company's not going to be on the show anymore. and it's kind of getting repetitive too. The writing isn't up to par, so let's take a break. Um, but Mulder and Scully are the center of it all. So that's it for tonight, people. Season opener. Oh no, we didn't. I thought we ran a little bit over. We didn't. Not that much. Um,
Yeah, I think we can actually skip the watch or skip section today because I think we both agree pretty much these are all watches.
oh, I forgot we do have the watch skip section. Yeah, I mean, for me, the only one. I mean, if you watch the movie, definitely watch the beginning. Not like my favorite episode, but yeah, I'm going to watch with all of them too. For me,
Yeah,
every single one of these
strong
episodes
beginning.
watches. So that's it. Next week we will be back and we'll be reviewing 5 episodes next week, not 6. So hope to have you here and thank you guys for supporting our little podcast. And those of you that want to find out what we do here in Brazil, we do have the Brazil Expat Journal. We should be on not next Monday, but the Monday after. And happy Labor Day for those that celebrate that first Monday of September. So that's coming up next week. Stay safe out there. Don't drink and drive. And have a good one. I guess we can go out with some crazy music and then that's it. Adios, amigos.